You're listening to the Sensuality Project podcast, where the messiness of real life gets sexy, hosted by Stacey Herrera. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only. Episodes contain profane language and topics of a sexual nature that may not be suitable for children. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to another episode of the Sensuality Project podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Herrera. We've been on a little break. Yes, I decided to practice some self-care and take 2 weeks off from the podcast, and I slowed everything down because I had an unexpected upswing in another business toward the end of the year. So it was challenging to juggle all the balls. And then I had like a pep talk with myself, like, Stacey, is juggling all the balls what you need to do right now? And the answer was no, so I took 2 weeks off. I hope that you took some time over the holiday season to slow down. Also, it's so important. But I'm really excited about entering this new year. We're already a couple of days in. I'm so optimistic about 2018. Are you? Like 2017 was really a very expansive, reflective, evolutionary year for me, particularly around relationships. And so I am looking forward to experiencing the fruit of the seeds that I planted last year. So I hope that you are doing that as well. But anyways, this week's episode, I am chatting with my sister friend, Winter White. Winter and I actually met at a workshop, and I liked her immediately. And our conversation was so rich and diverse and expansive. And this chat, just for reference sake, we chatted back in October of 2017. So any thing that might not seem present, it's because it's actually several months old. But it was great. Like, most of what we talk about is pretty universal. You know, sisterhood and becoming comfortable in our bodies and the way that we disagree and the burden we put on friendship. Like, we talked about so many things, and I know that you're going to enjoy this conversation and that there are going to be a lot of takeaways. Winter is just an amazing woman. She is a coach and a trainer, and can I tell you how fashion forward she is? Like, her Instagram feed is one of my favorites. She's got really great personality, lots of spunk. She's funny. And yeah, anyways, I love her. I know you're going to love her too. And yeah, just tune in. My daughter told me today that Bonnie and Clyde 03 is 15 years old. I don't know if today's the anniversary or not, but so the whole, Jay-Z, Beyonce collabo is like 15 years old today. So if you're Bonnie, what fictional character would be your Clyde?
Ooh, oh God. So the image that just came up in my head was Dwayne Wayne.
I love Dwayne Wayne.
Yes, Dwayne Wayne. Wasn't he so fun? And he was just so, like, adorably, I don't want to say pathetic, but like, he wore his heart on his sleeve. You know, a lot of men might think he was a simp for Whitley, for Denise, but I just thought he was so comfortable, like, giving love to these women who may have felt like the epitome of perfection. And maybe looked like, from the outside, they had a million men coming after him. And he didn't stop. He didn't stop being like, the guy who wanted to show them love. And that's the kind of guy that I hope to attract. That's my Clyde. I mean, maybe when I was younger, I kind of thought, okay, Tupac, right? Like the thug with, like, heart and soul and poetry. But no, I like Dwayne Wayne. I like the corniness. I like that he was great at math. I love that.
I get that. You were going to say he loved his mother? Yes, that is so important.
He loved his mother. If you remember, Patti LaBelle was his mama.
Mm-hmm.
She was so super like protective of him, right? I think his nickname was like Junebug or something. And I just watched like a whole, like, I just binge watched it. So, that's why I know all these details. And I just remember like him coming from like Philly, and like he had, he was from the inner city, but he was just a good guy. I love, like, now I can look at men and be like, that is really what's important, like where you come from and how you were raised and how you treat your mother and how you treat women and what are your talents and that kind of stuff.
You know what? I love that you chose somebody that people aesthetically wouldn't look at and be like, oh, he's so sexy. Because I do think that the older you get, the more substance becomes the meatier part of what's important to you about, not just romantically, but even in like the people that you find interesting, like the friends that you have, like those, it's the character stuff, the ingredients that make a person attractive, as opposed to, the icing. It's really the ingredients that make the icing, tastes delicious.
And as you're talking about this, there's this movie, and I have like, I don't know, I kind of compare my life and the things that I've learned to things I've learned in pop culture. So there's movies and there's like music that I can always refer to. But as you're talking about, as you grow older, like what you want and the substance of what you want changes. I'm thinking of that movie Up in the Air with George Clooney in it and Anna Kendrick. Do you remember that movie?
Yes, I own that movie. That was a great movie.
So do you remember when Vera Farmiga, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, is talking to Anna Kendrick's character, and they're talking about like, what is it that you want in a man? And Anna Kendrick is like, I want, someone, maybe his name is like John or Dave, it's one syllable, and there's nothing more important to him than his dog, and, he makes this much money a year, and parents are still married. She has like very specific things that she wants, right? So then she asked Vera Farmiga's character, like, so what is it that you want? And she's like, full head of hair would be nice, but that's not a deal breaker. Just be kind, just really kind, and just, really love me. I think that's what I want. And then Anna Kendrick is like, that is so sad. And she's like, no, that's not bad. I think as you grow older and as you see what's important so much, and I'm summing this up. She said it a lot more funny and eloquently, but like it changes. It just is not the same thing. And I don't feel like I'm settling and saying Dwayne Wayne. And I don't feel like Vera's, character was settling and saying, if he has a full head of hair, that's great. But if not, if he loves me and he's kind, that's enough.
I agree. I think, it's interesting, like the 20 somethings, like I used to say he needs to be tall. And I still like men that are taller than me. But I have to say that some of the most expansive experiences where I felt seen and held, as opposed to me holding, have been with people that weren't very tall. And I'm not saying that, short people got the market cornered on kindness. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying
that.
I'm saying that it took for me to age, for me to be open to receiving a gift regardless of the wrapping paper.
I can see that. And I mean, tall has never been on my list because I'm 5'2" and anybody is taller than me. And, and if he is just a foot taller than me, I still just think of like Danny Aiello and like Rhea Perlman. And I'm like, hey, that worked for years. But I've gotten so far away from like what it should look like because I've had like the really hot guy, I've had that. And in my experience, they've been assholes. And the people who have like, some form of like, what society would deem as like, oh, that's not cool or whatever. Like they've been more real for me. And the best sex I ever had was with a guy who I wasn't attracted to at all. But that's just how it's been for me,
Someone told me once that in your lifetime, you only get like 10 to 12 truly memorable sexual experiences. Not necessarily, not necessarily whether you have an orgasm or not, but like the ones like the stories or the experiences that when you look back on them, like they come to mind as memorable, where you're like, that was really good. So one of my most memorable experiences was with someone that had a prosthetic penis.
Shut up.
Let me tell you, honey.
Tell me.
If you've never had one, let me tell you, you should try. I'm not wishing that somebody has an experience like this particular person had bladder cancer. And so they had to remove his bladder and his prostate. And so when they did that, like they removed the cavernosa that actually makes the penis become erect, and they insert silicone tubing, which is kind of like getting like the same as a boob job. Like they put the silicone in, but everything, all the nerves and everything on the outside is still yours. Well, same thing. So there's still sensation and all this stuff. And so there's one tube that connects to the bladder. So, and like they leave the testes and they put a valve. One, like I think the right testy had like a valve that allowed him to open up his bladder, which they created. They created a bladder and then housed it inside of a piece of his intestines. And so he could push the valve in order to urinate. And then the other testy had a valve where he would press it, to become erect. So the great thing about it was he could make it harder, which was fantastic. The other thing was he did orgasm, except for he would have dry orgasms. So it's kind of like if you're with a guy that still has all the normal structure. If a man comes over and over again, like consecutively several times, then eventually he'll get to a point where he'll orgasm, but no semen or no fluid will come out. So it's kind of like that. Right. His was always dry, but he could go for like hours. He could go for like 2 hours without a break because there was no recovery. The other excellent thing about it was he also was more present in the room because he relied heavily on sensation. So smell and touch and vision was really important for him in order to create the arousal in a way that, because even though he had nerves and stuff still in his penis, it took longer. So he relied on all of his senses to be in the room with him. So it was really expansive and dynamic that way. And he had these mirrors all over the room. So I had never seen myself fucking, like not really seen myself, but like mirrors on the ceiling and mirrors on each side of the bed and behind the headboard. So you could see yourself in every dimension, which was amazing. Right. Cause it's like,
that would freak me the fuck out. That didn't freak you out?
No, it was like, wow, like, look at how great my ass looks right now. Like I'm on top riding that dick. Look at that. Like it was, it was great. But
Stacey, that would make me so self-conscious because in my head, I'm thinking about all the women that I've seen on TV have sex. And thank God for like these shows like Insecure and Girls and all the people who make like sex not pretty. But in my head, I've always looked at like sex as I'm supposed to be like, got this rhythm. I'm supposed to be like, very like athletic in bed and like, can do all these tricks. And I'm like, dude, missionary and doggy. That's my jam.
Well, this is the thing about self-consciousness though. The minute you start thinking, what is he thinking about me? Or I don't look like that. The minute your mind goes there, you left the room.
Right.
And you sever the connection of intimacy. So like, even though I'm not saying I never look, of course I looked bigger to myself than I imagined because, it's angles that I don't get to see normally. Right. So, so yes, I did look bigger to myself. But the other piece of that was I had saw a quote one time and it reminded me of him because he called me beautiful like it was my name. So when you're in the company of somebody that is, and somebody highly visual that is affirming what I know about me, and I didn't always feel that about me, but affirming my beauty, and then I'm looking and I'm seeing, I'm like, he sees what I'm seeing, and he says this is beautiful too. So it was an amazing experience, but it did, because the lights were on almost all the time, and it kept me in my body. And it kept me in the room because I was seeing it all the time. It was amazing. And like I said, it was a prosthetic. Like I had never fantasized about having sex with someone with a prosthetic penis, never thought about it until it was presented to me. And I thought it was awesome. I was like, it's amazing. It's amazing that your body looks like this. It's amazing that man created this apparatus that allows you to still be a fully functional, virile, sexual man. And there's never going to be a problem with whether you can get it up or not. It always can get up. That's amazing. Like, I was like, it was great. And then there was also the part where, and this is one of the unsexy things that people don't talk about sex, but there was no semen fermentation. You know, like, a day or two after sex, you still smelling it. And you're kind of like, this don't smell good no more.
Right. Let's be real with that shit because it is true.
Yes. Well, that never happens. So,
because I mean, as a woman, you can be, and I love that you brought that up because I feel like women, we are so hard on each other when it comes to like smells and like your bodily fluids and, and the crazy thing about women, especially when we have sexual intercourse with, other men and we welcome men into, our bodies, you can be the most cleanest woman ever. And you can use a condom and you can, be dotting your I's and crossing your T's. But, as a woman and your bodily like pH balance, it can be thrown off by anything.
Anything.
Right? Anything.
Yep.
Anything. Like, and I wish people would have so much more compassion for women when it comes to that. Sometimes I can be online and I can look at like these message boards that talk about like, oh, your pussy smells and and it's not just, oh, your pussy smells, but it'll take up like initial conversation will be like, use this, this product and it'll make you smell good. And then one woman will comment like, no products need to be used for you to smell good. The vagina is a self-cleaning, blah, 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 blah. And so many people will attack that responder, right? The vagina needs to be cleaned and you need to put this up in it and you need to do that. I mean, it is like that woman is looked at as a pariah. She is disgusting. Yep. She doesn't understand that you need this, and that to make your vagina clean. And one of the ways that I think people shame women is by our bodily functions. And one of the ways I think women do not take special like pride and like love of themselves is by understanding and having compassion for their own bodies. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry to like just jump because we were talking about Dwayne Wayne and now we're talking about like...
Nope, it's relevant.
As you're saying that,
it's relevant.
It's so relevant because, for a man to not have semen makes it so that in, so many ways, like, I don't have to deal with your fucking funky spunk.
Right. Yes.
Samantha Jones had a point when she was talking about your funky spunk, dude.
Yep. That is a thing. And because,
and it's a conversation that we need to have.
Absolutely. And I think too, I'm glad that you brought up like pH balance and how anything makes it shift because it does. And even when you are even if you have sex with a condom all the time, your body chemistry changes every single time you exchange energy with another person, period. And if you have sex with someone more than once, your body is now trying to acclimate that person's energy into your body. And that means that there is going to be some regulation. And part of that comes with the pH changing, because it's in the saliva, it's in the sweat, which is urine, like it's all of those things mixing with you changes your essence from the inside out. And that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I love the way my pussy smells. I'm so intimate with it.
Right.
So intimate with it. Like I can smell when I'm ovulating. I can smell when my period's about to come. It smells differently. I can smell when the pH is off, and now that I am now that I'm 44, like I never had armpit smell ever until I got over 40. Now, like I don't wear deodorant. Like I'll put lemon under my armpit or whatever. But now, like when I can smell the difference, my arms smell different than when I'm perspiring just regularly, as opposed to when I have perspiration from exercising, my armpits smell differently.
Right.
I actually don't have any armpit smell when my perspiration is from sex, which is interesting.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it doesn't give off a scent.
I love that you're saying that, what you're saying, because what I think the deeper message is that you know the difference.
Yep.
And that women have to know the difference between the smells, right? And don't be afraid of it. And don't be, scared of understanding your body chemistry and like thinking that there's something wrong with you. Like we have to really love and understand our bodies and not be afraid to talk about it and not be afraid to be like, okay, this is a little off, or you know what? This is the smell that it has when, this happens. Or it's a conversation that needs to not be rooted in shame. So important.
I agree. I think that the shame, well, first of all, if you don't know and appreciate, and when I say appreciate, it doesn't mean that you have to like think that every dimple is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Like you're not going to feel like that about all of your body parts, and that's okay. But you can accept, this is the way my body looks right now, and still have like immense gratitude. Like I have had a love-hate relationship with my arms my entire life. They are still fluffier than I prefer. Like they're still fluffier than I prefer. God. But these arms are fucking amazing. They do amazing things. Yeah. They are attached to my amazing hands that let me do amazing shit that I couldn't do without these fluffy arms. So do I love the way they look? Not really. But I appreciate them for everything that they do for me, in spite of the fact that I'm not in love with the way they look.
Why did you have to choose the body part that I freaking struggle with the most?
Oh, I didn't know.
Like, it's I've always so funny, like, your arms, right? Like, I literally have the smallest waist, the smallest, like, quote unquote, like, womanly figure, right? Like, or not even smallest, but like, the parts of me that are like voluptuous are very womanly. So my boobs are very womanly. And now that I've started to run, my ass is not so flat and wide. It's like a little bit perky, right? Mm-hmm. But my arms are so big. And it's almost been a little bit of a joke in my family on my dad's side that I take after my grandmother and my aunt. Like, oh, you have big arms. Like big arms are like our rite of passage. And it is so uncomfortable to have big arms, right? I'm not going to go into like the whole diatribe of, oh my God, aren't big arms. Oh my God, I cannot wear like peasant tops. It's not that. But it's like the one thing that as a woman is your thing that makes you feel insecure. And it becomes like this huge like thing in your life. It makes you think about why you can't wear peasant tops. And it makes you think like, oh my God, if I just was just a little bit this and that and this and that. And I wish that all women could like look at all of those things about themselves and be like, every woman feels that way about that thing. Does that make sense? I hope I don't feel like, I hope I don't sound like Small World.
No. I hear you, but I'd like to offer you something. So because of your heart and what your mission is in this lifetime, your mission is to be of service and to hold space in terms from a metaphysical perspective. And you have been gifted with enormous capacity to hold space for others. And that is what the symbolic meaning of your arms are. Now, when you look at it like that, in terms of what your life purpose is, your soul does not give a shit about the size of your arms. Your soul came here to do work and to do really important work of helping other people to expand, evolve, and to grow. And from that perspective, you have these arms that have an enormous capacity.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? So if you look at it that way, are your arms a mistake?
Well, I didn't look at it that way until you just told me that.
Like our body speaks in definite and literal language. It doesn't, it always speaks the truth of where we are and what we are capable of holding. So you have these arms that have an enormous capacity to hold space for someone's emotion, for someone's ability to change, for someone's resistance to change, for someone's willingness to evolve. Like you have the capacity to hold an enormous, abundant bushel of love, not just to give away, but to hold and to invite for yourself. These arms that you have this enormous capacity to hold all of these things. They're not just about aesthetic beauty, but really about being able to do the heavy lifting that is required of you to hold space for others.
Right. That is a question I have never asked myself.
So literal. I mean, you're constipated, and if you get constipated, you can almost always find some shit in your life that you're holding on to. The body speaks in the absolute truth of what's happening for you. So I'm not saying you can't want to tone your arms. Of course you can, but I'm saying
of course.
the volume of them really speaks to your capacity more than it speaks to peasant tops. Of course, peasant tops are cute. I totally get it. So tone them if that's, tone them. It's fine. But I'm saying like you can take away the energy that you're feeding it by looking at it based on what your real work is. And the fact that you're beautiful is icing, but the cake is you have this enormous capacity to help people to transform and transmute. And your arms are part of that. They're part of your passion.
And you know what else I think about my arms as? Like, it's very interesting to me that I have arms like this grandmother who I have nothing in common with. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. And maybe like my dad or my brothers or my cousins, or I don't know, maybe they'll listen to this podcast and they'll be like, hater ass bitch. You don't understand her, right? They'll be like, oh, you're just throwing our grandmother under the bus. Hater bitch, whatever. But what is so interesting to me is that I connect that with my grandmother, right? Like I think about my arms as like part of that womanhood. Like, I don't know. I think that's very interesting.
Do you know much about your grandmother, like the kind of woman she is or was?
I know a little bit of what I've tried to decipher. And I really have to say, like, I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I'm, correct in her life or anything. My grandmother on my dad's side, I have to make that very clear, is that she's like super intense. This is what it is. This is what I believe. This is like the truth. That's what I, kind of inhabit and who she is. And she is very, very spiritual and like connected to religion. That's what I've deciphered from her.
It's possible.
But I have to say,
no, go on.
Well, I want to say that I don't think that what I feel about her is the end all be all about life. Like I want to say that like this is the grandmother that I've experienced as this very like, willy-nilly grandmother who had this experience and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not looking at her as like a guide. I'm looking at more of her as an experience. Does that make sense?
Complete sense. Complete sense. Is it possible that her arms might be related to whatever she had to carry that shaped her character?
100%. Yeah.
So that might be an opportunity for you to look at what you have been carrying, and if there's anything that you need to release in order for you to be able to reshape your arms in a way that would, by reshape, I don't mean that they might not change visually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in order for you to reshape your perception around your arms, is there something that you've been carrying that it is now time for you to release? Because maybe she's never released hers.
100%. And you know what? It's like, I'm trying to feel better about my arms in retrospect to my relationship with you. And I'm trying to feel good about my body in relationship to this person. And 100%. It is not 100% like everything makes sense and we're going to, make sense of everybody. No, it's not that. It's not that. And that's what I respect about it. Asking the question, it's opening up to, am I feeling like this because of A, B, and C? Am I not feeling like this because of A, B, and C? It's not that there's any questions that are answered because of anything. It's just the questions that I've started to think about.
It's a journey because I hated these arms for a long ass time.
Right.
I did for a long time. Like even as a child, my mother made a lot of my clothes and she would have to like always do alterations on the arms. Always.
Right.
So they were like a bone of contention for me for a long time because I felt like I wouldn't even wear sleeveless tops for years. It could be like 100 degrees outside and I'd have a jacket on trying to cover these arms up. Probably now been about maybe 5 years ago. I remember I had several really cute tank tops. And I remember
Ooh.
being hot outside, and I remember thinking, how can I help a woman to appreciate, enjoy, and accept her body if I'm covering up my arms? And I decided in that
How
moment,
did you?
I put on one of those cute tank tops, and I was going out to lunch. I'll never forget it. I was meeting someone for lunch in El Segundo, and I did put my jacket in the car just in case. I put my jacket in the car just in case,
Right.
but I put on that tank top and I went out to lunch. And I went in and into the restaurant and I sat down. I brought my jacket just in case. And then I said to the person I was meeting, do you notice something different about me? And he said, your arms are out. And I said, yes, they are.
Oh.
And then I thought, and guess what? Nobody's looking at them, because that was a story that I made. I made that story up, that everyone's going to be looking like, look at her big fat arms. That did not happen. And that was when I just was like, okay, these are the arms that came with this body. And again, like you, I have a huge capacity to hold space for other people. And
right.
This is how they look, but they still do an amazing job. And they are not my favorite. They're not my favorite body part to look at. I'm not saying like, oh my God, they're amazing, they look great. Nope. They don't look great to me. I accept that this is what they look like, and I appreciate them every day anyway.
Right.
But it took, I'm 44. I said 5 years ago. Like, so,
right.
But it took for me to be in the space of like, I cannot tell a woman, accept your body and enjoy it. And again, I never tell anybody not to change their body if that's what they want to do, but appreciate and accept it wherever it is and however it looks today, because that's all that really exists. But I couldn't tell that story with a good conscience if I'm like, but I'm covering these fucking arms up every time I go out because they big as fuck. You know what I mean? I couldn't. So
yeah.
I wasn't walking my talk if I had stayed in that space. And so I just was
so
I'm gonna wear this tank top.
Can I ask you something?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to be woke to be able to have those opinions? Like, do I have to be walking in that? Because, like, I have to be so conscious. I have to be so,
no,
good and feeling good. And do I have to be that? Say what I feel?
No. In fact, you wouldn't be woke if you didn't say how you feel. You know what I mean? Like, being conscious is about being fully aware of whatever is true for you right now. And if right now the truth is, right now the truth is you don't like your arms that much, that's just as relevant as accepting them.
Okay, so why is that being woke, even though that's not a really good feeling about yourself, and you feel like, and maybe you feel like I'm making myself feel bad about my arms, like I shouldn't be thinking like that. Why is that a woke thing? I
don't think that it's a bad thing to not feel good, because for me, like even in this dialogue, like, it's not that you're not woke because you have a contentious relationship with your arms. Look, me too. Like, I'm still not in love with them, right? Yeah. But what makes you woke is you're able to discern how you're feeling, you're able to articulate how you're feeling, and you're able to accept that that's how you're feeling right now. Now, that's my definition of woke. I'm sure that is not what we would find on the internet. However, to me, being awake is being able to be with whatever is presenting right now. And in this moment,
say that again. No. Say that again.
So to me, being woke is being present with whatever is presenting right now. And if right now you feel shitty, and I'm not saying you feel shitty, but I'm saying if in this moment shitty is what's presenting for you, you are woke if you are willing to be with the experience of shitty rather than numbing out from shitty, because you could feel shitty and you could say, you know what, I'm going to toss back a few shots instead of feeling the shitty, or I'm going to go to sleep because I want it to feel better, and you could wake up still feeling shitty. Like, it's not running away from whatever feeling you're having, whatever is true for you in this moment is, to me, the very definition of consciousness. It's being in the room, in the experience with whatever is happening right now.
And can I just say, when I hear what you just said, and why I asked you to repeat that, is because what I think people feel woke as is you have a knowledge, and now you have to bring people into that knowledge, and now you have an understanding, and now you're trying to bring people into that understanding. Like, what I'm trying to do is help people in this Black Lives Matter movement. Now we're woke. And what I think woke is So not just that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why what I had to say was I had to say that twice, because it's like, no, woke is like there's something in you that has been ignited. There's something in you that has been like awakened.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that is. Because what I also say to people is like, whatever it is that you are protesting against, or whatever it is that you are pushing against, it's not a specific way of being. It's just like it's an awareness. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not sounding like a crazy person.
I agree completely. It is absolutely is an awareness. It's kind of like, because, whether people are using the language of woke or spiritual, this is a spiritual experience, because that's another thing. Everybody's having a spiritual experience, but there are people that's sitting on the front row right now in the church, on the front row, on the front pew, in front of the pastor, and they are not having a spiritual experience. You know why? Because they're not in the room. You cannot have an experience if you're not in the room. Being physically present and emotionally absent is not woke or spiritual.
Exactly.
So, like, for me, it means, am I in the experience? Am I physically and emotionally present? And am I okay being physically and emotionally present even when it's uncomfortable? Because guess what? A lot of expansion is uncomfortable. And that's when we want to check out. I mean, but that's the thing that keeps us from experiencing joy. It's also the same thing that keeps us from really grieving properly. It's the same thing that, all of those things. It's because we refuse to be with the discomfort. And woke is not just rallying against something. Because I see the woke conversations, like I see them, but it's not just rallying against and trying to be right. It isn't. It's not trying to be right. Like if you are having, because I hadn't thought about my own capacity and my big arms until you started talking about yours. Your experience awakened an awareness for me. Right. So it's not wrong to not feel great all the time. In fact, anybody who's striving to feel great all the time is delusional. That's the opposite of woke.
Right.
That's the opposite of woke. If always feeling good and having things always go well is the goal, you're delusional and you're like in quicksand, because you're going to sink really soon, because there has to be some resistance. There has to be some discomfort.
Right.
There has to be some darkness. In fact, if everything on your body looked and felt exactly how you wanted it to, would you go running tomorrow? Probably not. Probably not. Right? Like, probably not.
Right. No.
So there has to be the contrast is important, because it's motivational.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to lift a weight and tone your arms because of that, regardless of what family member they came from, right? Like your ability to have the continued desire to do something is largely driven by the fact that they don't look how you want them to look. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And one of the things that I completely had a good time talking to you about before we started recording is just like, well, I look at it like this. How do I make sense of it like that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to be a feminist and I want to bring all these feminist ideals to the table, but at the end of the day, I'm still so super hurt by certain things. Mm-hmm. I'm so super hurt by not being thought of as hot. I'm so super hurt as thought of as not a good friend, and my pussy stinks and blah, blah, blah. How do I, you know what I mean? How do I make sense of all those things when I'm still not there?
Well, I don't.
How do I do that?
I enjoy some feminist ideals, but I don't identify as a feminist. I think that the movement is great, and I think that the intention. There are certain things that I enjoy. I still believe that I enjoy, and I'm not saying that there are gender roles that we should have because we're a specific gender, but there are some of the things that would be considered a female role I enjoy, and I do them happily.
Yeah.
I still, when I'm in the car with a man, guess who's not pumping gas? I'm not. So those kinds of things that I appreciate that might be frowned upon, in terms of what some people perceive feminism to be. That's the reason I don't use that language to describe myself. And am I pro woman? Absolutely. Am I pro pussy? 1000%. Do I believe that women are strong and capable and that we can do amazing things? Absolutely. I believe in all those things. But I also am here for the messiness. And I'm here for the heartbreak. I'm completely okay with not being okay sometimes. I can ugly cry with the best of them. And there are, as much as I enjoy all of my smells, I didn't say that all of them smell good. I didn't say that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I appreciate I appreciate the clues and the pointers that the scents that my body emits allow me to pay attention, and they shine a light on areas that need my attention. And so I appreciate those things, but not all the smells are pleasant, and I'm okay with that. But that's part of the messiness, because nature is not neat. Just because we like to plant things in neat rows, that's not how nature really grows. That's just how we keep trying to make it grow in a straight line, but that's not real. You've never walked through an unkept forest and saw it look neat. The moss grows where it wants to grow. The ivy will wrap around a tree if it wants to. Strawberries don't grow in a line. They grow wild. You know what I'm saying? So why should I be less wild? Hair grows under my armpit. I shave like 3 times a year, like for real. I happen to not grow that much hair, but I don't shave all the time because hair grows there and it's supposed to. And I'm cool with that.
Right.
I will shave my legs only if I'm wearing a particular kind of skirt. And I don't always wear a particular kind of skirt. So my legs don't get shaved all the time. And I am okay with that. I stopped shaving my pussy a long time ago. That hair grows there on purpose. It's a barrier. I like it. Yeah, I'm here for all the messiness, and I still, there's still times when I just had a conversation with one of my close girlfriends earlier today, and I was telling her an experience that I was having, and I said, I know that this is a product of my ego, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to not feel it because I know this is about my ego. Yep, it's about my ego, and I'm cool with that because my ego is useful sometimes.
Yeah. And it's knowing that the ego is being useful right now. And it's also knowing that this ego is being useful in this other way right now. It's just knowing how is it being useful. I completely agree with you.
Yep. As opposed to trying to, oh my God, that's my ego talking. Yep. Sometimes it is my ego talking. Let me tell you, my ego is the one that shows up to draw the line in the sand when somebody else is talking shit. My ego shows up and will tell you to fuck off.
Right.
I'm grateful for her.
Right.
In certain intimate situations, sometimes I have to tell her, look, your ass got to get in the back because you're going to fuck this up. In those experiences, she doesn't get to drive. But it's sometimes she shows up and I'm like, she is a ride or die bitch. You hear me? She will tell somebody off in a minute. And I'm grateful for her.
Yeah.
She is useful to me. And I'm happy that she's on this journey, but she doesn't get to be the driver all the time because sometimes she's reckless. In some situations, she just really will do the wrong thing. So
and sometimes, I completely agree with you. And sometimes she's such a small part of the bigger picture that I can say, okay, the ego right here is attached to this situation, this little part of the argument, but not the whole argument.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I would like to talk about one of the things that I've become really discerning about in romantic relationships, but also in friendships and even business interactions is when I am attracting someone or a situation or a circumstance from the space of wholeness or woundedness.
Ooh.
So let me give you an example. If I attract somebody from the space of my wound, I am usually fiercely attached to the outcome. Whereas when I attract from a place of wholeness, I'm untethered and I can want something or want a particular outcome, like have a desire while being completely unattached to whether it turns out that way or not. But when I attract from my woundedness, there can be almost an obsession attachment to outcome.
So when I am hurt by a specific situation, then I am attached to a specific outcome, as opposed to when that's never happened to me and I'm not attached to it. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, like I guess it's like the suffering piece. Like usually if it's something that is coming from a place of my wound, my core wound, whatever my not enough story is attached to that situation is, whatever that happens to be. If it's coming from that space, if it doesn't turn out the way that I want it to, there is a prolonged suffering that accompanies the experience, as opposed to when it's a space of wholeness and it's just like, oh, well, that's not what I thought was going to happen. But, this opened a great space of opportunity. Like my perception is way different when it's from wholeness.
I think it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. Like when I'm hurt, for me at least, when I'm hurt and I feel like I've learned from it, right? Like, oh, I can take the lesson from it. Then it feels good. But sometimes when it's just all the hurt that I can remember, like I can just remember the feeling bad. That makes it harder for me to find a lesson in it. Like there have been many times, especially with men, where it's like, all I really remember about this relationship is how bad I felt. I can't remember the relationship. I can't remember the lessons because the bad I felt is like so much deeper than the less. Does that make sense? And maybe I'm a little bit
no. It makes total sense. And I think like those, because I have a few of those experiences myself where it's just like the whole thing was just fucked up. Like, but when I look back on those particular instances, when I think about like what attracted me to that person in the first place, like not just the aesthetic stuff, but the real attraction. Like when I think about that person, when I look at it, it was like, oh, he was busy all the time, because for me, I was used to needing to perform to get attention as a child. So if I attract somebody that doesn't have time, I get to do the thing that I'm used to doing. And it never turns out well because that's a wound.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo! I think, oh my God. And sometimes with like relationships, you do kind of like try to connect. Well, how is this guy that I'm attracted to like my father, right? I mean, at least that's what I do, right? Mm-hmm. I look at this guys that I've dated. I'm like, how much are they like my father or my brother? Like in ways that are kind of obvious, because my father and my brothers are the people who always like driven how I look at men. Mm-hmm. But what I don't think that we do as women is I do not think that we look at the relationships that we have with men in terms of like our friendships and our mothers, and not just like love relationships, but I feel like everything is relevant, especially friendship. Like friendship, I think, is one of those like core relationships we throw to the side and don't look at how we look at each other. And we just think like you're either really super needy or you're really super like nonchalant. But we don't realize how much our friendship guides relationship. And what I have noticed is that as a person in a relationship, for me, I am a dream. And yeah, I don't have a man, but I mean, whatever.
Look, like, that don't mean nothing.
That means nothing. Like as a person who you will have sex with, and as a person who you will like enjoy my intimacy, I am probably like the ultimate person for you. But as a friend, I am probably the most challenging, right? And what I think happens is that when you're in a relationship with someone, those two worlds collide. And I think that I have a lot to learn in that. And I think that as people, we have a lot to learn where it comes to friendship and where it comes to understanding and like being open and like fluid and all those kinds of things that we don't do.
Tell me more about your challenges in friendship, though. I'm so curious, because I agree with you. I think that we don't spend enough time. In general, we don't spend enough time trying to be good at relationships, period. We want relationships to be good, but we don't try to be good at them.
Right. So I think that for me, what I expect is for my friends to show up perfectly for me and understand exactly what I need as a friend. So sometimes I expect that, retreating because I'm feeling insecure right now, or that I'm retreating because you didn't invite me to your birthday, and that I'm retreating because you didn't come to my birthday. And I automatically think that's what my friends think, because in my mind as a friend, that's what I'm thinking. However, in the mind of someone who is relationship focused and man focused. What I'm thinking is, how can I just show you abundant love? How can I show you that I'm worthy of it? How can I show you that I'm, someone who wants to love you? And so therefore I'm showing love more than I am expecting it to show up for me.
And in your friendships, do you clearly communicate what you need from them?
No, I do not.
What do you call it? A Toastmasters meeting once. And I was invited to speak. And at the time, I didn't know it was Toastmasters. So I said yes without knowing that I was going to be speaking to a room full of speakers. So,
okay.
But
that's
later,
dangerous.
right. It turned out well, but yeah. I didn't know. Thankfully, I didn't know in advance because it was an advantage because I might have chickened out. But later, I ended up talking to like the president of that particular chapter of Toastmasters. He called me and we were talking, and he told me this story about one of the other members, and he said that when the guy like had been a member of the chapter, if that's what they call them, the chapter for a while, the guy called him and was like, I'd like to be friends with you. And, he's like, of course, like, sure, and the guy's like, well, we should have a contract. And he said at first he thought it was so strange. And the guy said to him, as your friend, and I'm ad-libbing because I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, as your friend, I promise to be honest with you. I promise to be trustworthy of anything that you share with me. And I promise to give you my full attention when we communicate or whatever. And then he said, okay, as your friend, I promise to make time to chat with you a couple of times a month, or, like he gave a couple of things or whatever. And that was their agreement. And he said, at first, I thought it was so strange. I thought he was strange for wanting to have a contract with me about friendship. And he said, but it turns out that that's been one of the most expansive and supportive relationships that I've had outside of my family, because we went into it with real solid and clear intentions. So the reason I'm sharing that though is because, like you said, we often go into friendships very frivolously, and when we go into romantic relationships, and sometimes we're poor about communicating what we need even in those relationships, but we're more likely to tell a romantic partner what we need than we are to tell a friend what we need. So maybe it's just a matter of you. And you won't want the same thing from every friend, because every friend can't hold the same kind of space, right? So maybe the relationships that the friendships that mean the most to you, maybe it might be a matter of you opening dialogue about, let's talk about how we want to show up for each other and being really intentional about that. And I have a couple of girlfriends that I have that kind of relationship with. And some people, some people I don't. Like, I have one friend, like I said, I was talking to her earlier today, and I was sifting through something, and I needed it to have my words to land someplace that they could be reflected back to me. And she was like really good. And she asked me a question. I said, I hadn't thought about it until I'm expressing it in this moment. And she said, I haven't said anything profound to you. And I said, no, you haven't, but you have been a really great listener. And because you've listened, you reflected back a question that invited me to go deeper. And that's what I needed. So, that maybe it just might be a matter of being intentional with your own intentions, and then inviting maybe try it with one or two friends, but just inviting them into a conversation about what it is, how you'd like to be supported. And with my friends, like if someone calls me and starts telling me something, if I'm unclear about what I think, because sometimes you can discern what they might need from you and sometimes you can't. But I often will say, how can I support you? So that then they have an opportunity to get clarity around what it is that they need, and they can ask me for it so that I can show up, and then there's not a miscommunication about it.
Exactly. And as I'm thinking and I'm hearing what you're saying, what I'm also thinking about is our first conversation about women and our vaginas, right? It's like you automatically should know that your vagina you should be doing these things. It should smell like this. It should look like this. And, none of these other alternatives that may present themselves should deter your vagina from having like a misnomer. I don't even know what to fucking call it, right?
Right.
So when you have a misnomer, the vagina is, not the perfect little princess that it was. You're a dirty little girl, right? What I think about is the same, because I'm putting together all our conversation, but it's like friendship should already be established. We should already know exactly how we feel. We should already know exactly how we should communicate to the person and what they like and what they don't. And as soon as we defer away from that personality or that narrative, right, we have fucked up, and the friendship should be thrown out. We had this one disagreement. There's drama. I'm good on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That our friendship should be like how we treat our bodies. It's like, I'm learning something about you every day that I didn't know because I've introduced this new situation to you. I've introduced this new topic to you. And I'm trying to figure out how that topic, that situation, that thing that we're going through right now, how that fits into my life and how I should respond. And maybe I don't respond, the perfect way the first time. And I should have some space there to be okay with like not responding perfectly. But we expect so much out of friendship, more than we expect out of a relationship with men, more than we expect out of a relationship with our family. It's like, I expect you to show up perfectly for me as my best friend the first time around. I don't give you any room to make a mistake. And as soon as you make a mistake, if you don't respond how I want you to, you're cut off. And I feel like, if we all looked at our relationships in the same way, our friendships in the same way, like, this may not be the correct way to go after I've disagreed with this person. This may not give me the, ointment that make me feel better. I should be open to that. I'm open to it, but we're still not, because at the end of the day, we want our friends because they are the family that we choose to turn up perfectly. But the crazy thing is that no relationship is like that. And everything is worth work and bending and understanding and learning and like being open. And I feel like until we can do that, in our relationships that do not give us anything, like, you're not giving me sex, you're not giving me money, all you're giving me is pure unadulterated joy. That's what our friendships are giving us. Pure unadulterated joy. Like, literally, Stacey, when I started talking to you tonight, I did not think about the fact that I would be feeling unadulterated joy. But then I started feeling that, right? I started feeling that just because, like, I wasn't expecting that. And that's sometimes what happens with friendship. I'm not expecting to feel so comfortable with you. I'm not expecting to feel so loved from you. But I love it, and now I have it, and now I'm expecting that from all the other friendships in my life, because you're not going to fucking go down on me. You're not going to fuck me. You're not going to make me feel good in any way. You're just going to make me feel pure unadulterated joy that has nothing to do with sex or anything else. Like, that's so important. But when we stop feeling like that, we feel like the person is expendable. So we gotta get out of that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And I agree with you. And while you were saying that, I was thinking about a relationship that I didn't throw it away, but I pulled back on, because usually that might be what I might tend to do, is like pull back and become more of a passive observer in the connection as opposed to being an active participant.
Right.
So I agree with you. Earlier, before we started recording, we were talking about how we perceive ourselves and how that changes how we perceive others. And I think that speaks volumes to our friendships, that the way that we are willing to abandon our friends often speaks to our willingness to abandon ourselves.
Woo! You know what, Stacey? You've been saying like amazing little nuggets to me all night. I cannot with you right now. I cannot. Can you just say, no, I understand what you're saying right now. Like, I connect with what you just said right now in my heart. But I need you to explain that to the person who doesn't, because I just had an aha, but I need the people who need a connection to understand that. Can you please explain that?
Okay. So we definitely don't language self-abandonment, but I will give you an example that I have lived repeatedly. I'm a natural nurturer of people. So it's so easy for me, I've done it with friends, I've done it with romantic partners, I've done it with family, where someone will do something or say something that is harmful or hurtful to me. And when I reflect it back to them, they start feeling bad. They start feeling bad. They start feeling guilty. And rather than me staying present and nursing my own wound, I abandon myself and start immediately taking care of them because they now feel bad. So that looks like me starting to say, it's okay. I know you didn't mean it, blah, 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 blah. But now that you're taking care of your feelings and I'm taking care of your feelings, who's taking care of my feelings? Nobody. So we abandon ourselves as women. And I'm not saying men never do it, but I know women have a tendency to do it. We abandon ourselves really quickly. Or another example might be someone does something and maybe they're not remorseful. And the first thing you do is think, what's wrong with me?
Oh,
and the minute you abandon yourself the minute you made yourself wrong for something someone did to you.
Yeah.
So our tendencies to abandon ourselves, of course, we're able to walk away from our bestie when all she did was make a joke that she thought was funny. Of course, we're willing to give up our 20-year friendship because she forgot our birthday. Of course, we're no longer going to talk to the woman who told us, who laid down some real truth that we didn't want to hear. Of course, now we're like, she's a fucking hater and I ain't never talking to her again. Of course, we're willing to walk away when it gets uncomfortable because we walk away from ourselves when it gets uncomfortable.
Right.
So I think like our ability to weather and to grow and to communicate and to express ourselves in relationships is a direct reflection of how well we are communicating and addressing and reflecting and internalizing and processing our own feelings and actually being present and staying in the room for our own feelings rather than abandoning ourselves when it gets uncomfortable. And sometimes abandoning ourselves might look self-deprecating. It might look like calling yourself stupid, like you're so stupid or you're so ugly, or of course you fucked up because you never do anything right. Sometimes it looks like that. Sometimes abandoning yourself looks like eating a pint of ice cream. Sometimes it looks like smoking chain smoking joints like they cigarettes. You know, sometimes it looks like driving too fast on the highway or fucking that dude that you know don't give a fuck about you. Like there's a lot of ways that we abandon ourselves. Like whatever your fix is the way that whatever you use to check out is a form of abandonment. So I think when we find ourselves immediately, our default setting is to hurry up and walk away from somebody rather than to move through something. And that's not to speak to, you know, there are relationships that have expiry dates. But when our default setting is that when something doesn't go our way, is to destroy it or throw it away, you know, mark it trash and walk away from it. If that's what we're doing, then it's time for us to look at ourselves and be like, okay, how am I not taking good care of me? Because my inability to take care of me makes it impossible for me to take care of you.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's like, if I'm not honoring how I feel, how can I honor how you feel?
Yep. And so when you don't honor how you feel, either you make yourself wrong all the time or you make the other person wrong all the time. But in any situation, if we're divvying up wrong, there's a slice of a pie for both of the people.
Right.
You know, there's always something that, like, even if maybe someone said something that was inappropriate and it hurt your feelings, you know, if you didn't say anything, then your slice of the pie looks like the part of you that didn't express it. So now you're resentful so you walked away from the relationship, but they don't even know why you was really mad. Because it wasn't about what they said. Maybe it was about the energy that was behind it, or you had a trigger for that thing, or whatever the story is. They have no idea. And now you're making up a story about what their intentions were.
Yeah.
But you don't know because you didn't really talk about it.
You didn't talk about it. And sometimes we need like a way to talk about it. We need like the tools to say how we feel without feeling like a complete asshole. And the one like tool that I found as I've, been so emotional about how I feel about certain things is saying, from my perspective, or from where I was sitting at the time, or how I was feeling or whatever, like I completely turned it on me. And I always say, like, this is just how I was feeling because of where I am. And it's not to take away from how I was feeling. And I feel like everything that we approach is from our perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. And when you approach something from your perspective, it's neither right nor wrong, but it is what it is. And how can you argue with me, my perspective? And that's why I want to always attempt to approach a conversation that may be difficult, or we may have conflicting points of view. As from my perspective, this is how I viewed it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's the beginning.
And I'm really good about when I'm the one who needs to apologize, right? Like this just happened to me yesterday. I had snapped at my daughter, and she said later, "I have a bone to pick with you. You know, I understood what you were saying earlier, but you snapped at me and blah 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 blah." I said, "I apologize for my delivery. I do not apologize for my words." I would be lying to you if I said I was sorry just as a blanket, but I will, I'm good about like, okay, this is the part I could have said it better to you. And energetically, I was aggressive or whatever. I'm not at all apologizing for the content of the sentence, but I do apologize for the energy and how I gave it to you. And even, you know, like we had talked about earlier with other people. If I'm triggered by something and it runs through my feelings multiple times, that means that I have to tell your ass about it. Some stuff is like, that's my shit or whatever. But if it keeps running through me, then it's like, okay, I need to talk to you about this thing that happened. And like, I recognize that your intention wasn't to be hurtful to me. But again, like you hit me in my not enough trigger. And so I'm not asking you to do anything. There's no behavior that you need to change, but you need to hear this because these feelings involved you. And that's why I am letting them land on you. I just try my best, and I'm not always successful, but I try my best to not make someone else responsible for managing my feelings. So I'm not telling them they need to do something to make me feel better. That's nobody's job but mine. But if there is something for the other person to own, I'm going to give it to you.
That's awesome. I love that. And what I was going to say is kind of a piggyback off that. I'm glad that you finished that statement because, you know, what I felt comfortable in doing in this conversation with you is that when we started conversing before, you know, we started recording the podcast is like there was an equal amount of like give and take. Mm-hmm. And there's so much as a woman in my life that I feel is not an equal amount of give and take. There's not an equal amount of someone asking me questions and really, really wanting to hear what I have to say. Like no one, Stacey, before you ask me is like, what is your like ideal man? And when you asked me that, like we did not talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Like that was not this conversation. Our conversation before this podcast was like literally like, it was not like, okay, so this episode is going to be about da 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 da. But what I feel like I gathered from it and what I feel like women sometimes don't have is just like an opportunity to just kind of like, let me ask you a question and get your opinion on it and your feelings about it and whatever. Like you think maybe that women have the opportunity just because you may listen to podcasts or you may pay attention to, you know, media or whatever, but the opportunity to do that is really not that apparent in personal relationships.
No.
So wherever you can do that, like wherever you can be that for someone, wherever you can hold space for someone to tell you how they feel and they can like explain to you their experience, like do that. Do that. We can do that for everyone in our lives.
I agree.
And it's so important.
You know, earlier you were talking about seeing the miracles and seeing the dots connect and praying for that. And that made me think of a book that you have to read called Textbook by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. You might have heard of her. She wrote some regular books too, but she wrote a lot of children's books, but she died earlier this year. But she wrote a dating ad in the New York Times for her husband before she died. That's how I discovered her because I hadn't heard of her before, but she wrote this amazing article basically describing some future woman that her husband might meet because she knew she was dying and why he was so great. And it went like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it went viral and she died like within 2 weeks of it being published or whatever. But she wrote this book called Textbook. It's really a short read. It's really great because it's all like she talks a lot about serendipity. So definitely a must read.
And it's what we put our attention to because I feel like miracles are happening all the time.
All the time.
But if you are not paying attention to them, then they just seem like everyday occurrences.
Yep.
If you are like, oh my God, I'm praying for that amazing parking lot. I see that parking space and I see it and I'm going to pull into it. And then you find it and then you don't give it the proper praise and attention that it deserves. Like that amazing thing just happened. I just thought about that parking space and it came up. I'm going to freaking tell my friends about it and feel happy for it. But you don't look at everything like a freaking amazing blessing that was a like crazy, like otherworldly occurrence, then nothing's going to feel special anymore.
Ever. And again, like it's like seasoning, right? Like you can cook without seasoning and it won't taste like much, but you can do it, right? Like, but the minute you start adding seasoning, it changes the way it looks, the way it feels, and the way it tastes.
Ain't nothing the same without lemon pepper, honey.
Right?
I don't want nothing without lemon pepper.
I heard that. I am so here. This is so great. Okay, so we skipped intercourse, but I have to ask you a couple of questions before we go. Okay, so you're in a situation, and this is a dude that you like you feeling him. He's romantic. He says all the right things. He plans perfect, great, amazing dates. He books reservations. He books reservations. Finally, you're getting busy. You've done it a couple of times, but every single time he comes too fast.
Okay.
How do you respond?
Ooh. Like, what is our rapport like? Like, do I feel comfortable with him? Are we friends? I mean,
like you have a great time with him. You get each other's jokes. Like the banter is amazing, and you feel comfortable. Like you feel like you've known him for a long time, even though maybe you guys have been dating for maybe less than 2 months or something. The couple of times you got busy, it was the same thing.
Okay, well, my thing is, like, do you like to eat pussy or no? Like, do you or don't you? Like, because, you coming fast is something completely about you. It has nothing to do with, it has something to do with me, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, because you're not making me come, but does that stop you from wanting to make me come? That's my question.
I hear you. Okay.
That's my question. Like, do you eat pussy? Like, I guess you cannot come in the, way that everybody comes, which is through like sex. But let me tell you something. I have had the best orgasms by someone going down on me. So do you like that or do you not? And if you don't, then there's a problem, because obviously we won't both be fulfilled. But does that mean I'm not going to ever want to kiss you or make out with you or have intimate moments with you? No. But maybe I don't want to fuck you.
I am not mad. I am not mad. And you know what? I think that some relationships are like that. Do you think it's teachable? Like, do you feel like it's teachable? Like someone not being great in bed, like, are you willing to be a teacher? I guess is a better question.
100% it is teachable, because I feel like we all come to the table with like different ideas of what intimacy is and good sex is. And it's teachable if you're open to knowing that you don't know everything.
Yes.
If you're open to knowing that you don't know everything, then everything is teachable.
That right there. That right there.
Yeah. Like, sex is just not inherent. I just got it in me. I'm a freaking sexual beast. Like, I get it cracking. Like, I wish, right?
Right.
But I know there's someone out there who has a different drive than me and has had different sexual experiences than me, and probably had the girl who can like twerk and do, like, I'm not good at twerking. Like, I know there's probably somebody out here, So I've got to believe that sex is teachable, because I don't know everything. So if I don't know everything, then I got to know my partner doesn't know everything, and I've got to be open to that.
I love that so much. And because somebody listening to this is in that situation and have already thrown in the towel because of that. Like, look, penetration is one kind of sex. Like, that's not the only kind of sex. Yeah.
No, I've just experienced so much kinds of different sex when there's love involved and like a good relationship. And I hope that people get past the physical nature of just like bump and grind up and down, blah, 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 to like understand the intimacy that those other experiences can offer you. There's more than that.
Yes, I agree. Okay, here's another question. So you're playing sexy Picasso with your partner. You've got
sexy Picasso.
Yes, sexy Picasso, and you have some skin-friendly paints. What do you draw on your partner's body and where?
My name.
I'm not mad at you.
I'm one of those people like that. Whenever I doodle, I just draw my name a million times.
Me too. Well, plus
So
your
the only
name
thing that
begins with W, and W's can be so fancy.
yeah. Oh my God. And I didn't realize that until I saw other people write W's. I've seen other people draw W's and I'm like, ooh, that's your take on a W? I'll take that W.
My W,
Yeah.
the first line looks like a backwards 3. And then
Oh my God. I've seen that one. I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
I
Yes.
love drawing W's.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, I just draw my name because that's just what I doodle. I doodle my name. Like we like the sound of my name. We like the sound of our name, but I like the look of my name. And I would just like to tattoo my name on someone, like in paint.
Look, edible pain, yum. Like
Right? I just want to see my name on you. Like I just own that shit. That's
I
mine.
heard. I am not mad at you. I am so not mad at you. Okay, one final question before we wrap up. This is always like the question that I ask everybody at the end of the podcast, and that is how do you like to be taken care of after sex? Like what do you need? What do you need your partner to do to make the experience feel fulfilling for you?
That is like I never fucking thought about that ever. I do okay. Okay, so I know what I don't like because I used to have a partner who jumped in the shower afterwards and it made me feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I never understood why, but it just made me feel bad. So don't jump in the shower. And the best I've ever felt is am I asking like, what do they do or just what do I want to feel?
Both. Like, what do you want him to do so that you can feel how you want to feel?
I just want him to continue to touch me. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to go run off and do something. I don't want to feel like you're like, okay, this was just dirty. I got to rinse myself off. Like, I just want you to feel like I still want to touch you. I still want your body near me and whatever that may be. And that may be just like touch your shoulder, or that may just be like touch your face, or, you know, it's not a specific thing, but it's just like, I still want to touch you in some kind of way.
Yeah, I asked the question because I think that we often don't think about it. But I know in my experience, how someone cares for me afterwards can often paint the experience a different color. You know, like it could be great. Yeah. And, like maybe it's great. And then he hops in the shower and then you're like, fuck, and all you can remember is how you felt afterwards.
Yeah. And I did ask my one boyfriend who kept hopping in the shower, because it wasn't even like a person who was hopping in the shower that I didn't have a relationship with. It was like my boyfriend who kept hopping in the shower. And he made it clear to me, like, it was almost like routine. Like it had nothing to do with me. It was just like, that's just what you do. You hop in the shower. Like, I want you to know I'm clean and, whatever. It wasn't anything personal. But I was taking it personal because I thought he was saying that I wasn't clean. That was our own thing. It was just his thing of like, I have pussy on me. I have, this thing. Like, he was just like, that's just cleanliness. That's what I've been taught. It has nothing to do with you. And from what I was thinking, because of how I think about my own body and sex and whatever had to do with that intimacy, was I'm dirty and you want me off of you. But it didn't have anything to do with that. So I realized that was what I was bringing to the table. But at the same time, what I'm thinking is, even if that isn't a sign of cleanliness to you, I want you to just be like, I want all your dirty on me.
Look, I love that. I love the dirty. I want, in fact, I want to stew in it for a little bit.
That's what I want. I want to stew in the dirty freaking draws right now.
Right? Look, sweat on me some more. Like
all of it. I love it. I love that. Like, that just makes me feel so accepted. It makes me feel so at peace, because I am not going to always come to you perfectly virginal and beautiful. Like, I'm going to have things, right, that just make me like a human being. And I want you to know that with all of those things, you still love me. So doing my fucking bullshit. And I'll doing your fucking bullshit.
That's great.
That's what I want.
If showering is a thing, that's great and everything. But I need 15 minutes of post-coital cuddles.
Yeah. Even if it's like, I want to get up so bad right now, but I'm going to fucking lay in all your post-coital cuddles.
Right?
I don't even like, I just love you so much. Like, if you tell me that, I'm good. That's how I feel, but I just don't want you to escape it.
I heard that. Look, you can have it however you like. The Sensuality Project is produced, edited, and hosted by me. Music by bensound.com. The Sensuality Project podcast is a production of StaceyHerrera.com.